Welcome to your official sector trends this morning. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiage. All right, let's just get the introduction this morning for the next part of our conversation. Let's take a tiny little break again this morning so that, yes, I think now we have it. Good. Now, the Kenya National Electrification Strategy, that is the KNES 2018, identified standalone solar, that is the SAS, as the preferred mode of electricity to 1.9 million households in the country by 2022, while identifying cost as the major barrier to achieving this. Now, the Finance Act 2020, however, introduced what players in the industry considered as a setback to achieving this after they introduced new taxes in the form of VAT and some input duties on renewable energy products, including off-grid solar solutions, with the current VAT exemptions for standalone solar products removed through amendments to the Value-Added Tax Act number 35 of the 2013 that was enacted through the Finance Act 2020. Now, the Africa Clean Energy Technical Assistance Facility has been working to support the Kenya Renewable Energy Association and GOGLA, now with the support of the Ministry of Energy, to conduct an economic impact assessment on the impact of VAT and the input duty on the SAS products this morning to help us understand where we are as regards this SAS industry within the country. We are joined by Mr. Tonui Patrick, Head of Policy and Regional Strategy at GOGLA. We are also joined by Shah Snehar, General Manager, Azuri East Africa. Gentlemen, good to have you around. Let me start with you, Mr. Tonui. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning, Simba. Thank you so much, and I'm doing well. I hope you're well too.
Happy to have you around. Let's first begin really by understanding where we are in terms of the state of the standalone solar industry in the country.
Well, thank you. I think we in 2021 we are definitely in this strange period as an industry because of the whole COVID pandemic and scenario.
Yes.
I would say for us as a sector, historically and leading even up to 2019 and 2020, we've been seeing tremendous growth, penetration, acceptance. We were seeing growing investments. We were seeing the number of companies participating in this sector growing. We were even seeing our members and the companies that we work with going to even the areas of the country that remained underserved. But what happened in 2020 and 2021 is obviously what we call this economic shock, which has affected the industry in a number of ways. One, our customers, the ones that we are trying to serve, all saw an economic shock to their livelihoods, which means what they had in terms of incomes, their ability to pay, forced them to prioritize where they were going to spend their money. And secondly, we also saw that the global economy in terms of production, when in early 2020, China had to shut down, so the supply chain was severely affected. And even now we are seeing with all the global economies that are impacted, the investment and the ability for money to come into the sector, because we need all types of investment from debt to equity. All of that is really under severe pressure. So we are seeing pressure in terms of the level of investment that we need to come down, to come into the sector, which means even what we have in the companies is under pressure. Then we now saw the introduction of taxes in Kenya,
yes,
which has affected all the companies and the industry in a number of ways.
Pretty much. Mr. Tony, I'm going to be coming back to you on that as well, because that's where the gist of the conversation starts this morning. Let me bring in Shah, General Manager, Azuri East Africa. Shah, where are we as a country when it comes to the SAS industry, and how do we compare with our peers in 2021?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good to meet you. It's really an honor to be part of this industry in Kenya. And you know, Kenya is famous for a lot of innovation. Of course, you know, we can talk about M-Pesa, where you know it's cutting edge. And almost 10 years on, that this SHS industry that started. SHS stands for small home systems, which are solar based, and Kenya was the bed of innovation. And I'm very glad to say that once again, Kenya is leading the way. The 2022 electrification strategy that has been laid out by the government, that is also world leading. So we made the huge strides here. And you know, just to give you some context, in Kenya, we have a population of about close to 50 million people, about 12 million households. Out of that, around 4 million have been electrified by Kenya Power. But even the 4 million, I mean, we know some of the things that are happening with Kenya Power and some of their financial troubles. Customers still complain of unreliability. And even out of the 4 million customers, it was reported last year that as many as 1 million of those customers are dormant. Our industry, we've made strides in terms of, in a space of just over 5 years, we've connected about 2 million customers to solar. But if you look at you know the gap that is still there, that is as many as 7 million households who are not electrified and don't have any decent means of solar power yet as well. So there's a huge opportunity to be taken. And when we look at the difference that we're making, companies like ours, we don't only provide the power, you know, we provide the appliances that go along with the power. So we provide lighting so that, you know, children can study at night, do their homework. So there's a lot of indirect benefits. You know, Patrick talked about some of the challenges we had last year due to the pandemic, but that actually also created a big opportunity for us because with the lockdowns, you know, schools were shut. So in May, June last year, we saw a huge spike in demand for television because education was delivered through television, through channels like yourselves and others. So there's a lot of benefit that is happening to the Kenyan, especially the rural population, where you know they're becoming educated, they're becoming upskilled. So you can imagine down the line how much impact that will have to the economy in Kenya.
Pretty much. Now, Mr. Tunoi, let's therefore talk about what the Finance Act 2020 has really done to this specific industry. You're saying that in reality, it's working counter-interactive with what it should be doing. Is that the case, Mr. Tunoi?
Absolutely. And why do we say that?
Yes.
I think our 2018 policy identified affordability is a big thing. In fact, Kenya in 2021 has been nominated to what's called the UN High-Level Dialogue that is looking at the pace towards meeting this energy access agenda and within that, one of the big things that all the global players have identified is at our current pace, over 600 million people will be still without access to energy in 2030 because of this issue of affordability and access. And we are being asked, what can everybody do in terms of governments? One of the things that's being discussed is introducing measures to reduce the cost and make it affordable for poor communities in the form of things like end user subsidies to the consumer, along with what they do in the grid now. So what did Kenya do? And this is the big problem. What Kenya has done is instead raised these costs. And we've seen prices go up from anywhere between 10 and 24%. And the statistics in this report is showing that without this, Kenya stood by 2025 to electrify over 600,000 homes.
Yes.
But with these taxes, we see that. And you know, the risk now is consumers will choose to buy, you know, products that they can afford, which will mean even the level of energy service that they get. What you would like, and ideally, is to give as near parity to what they'd experience in terms of being able to power a radio, a TV, a fridge, fans, and the normal things that you need, and also be able to use energy for their business.
Yes.
But now instead, we will see customers make choices that are counter to what we are looking to get.
Pretty much. Let me get in Shah as well. Shah, I mean, if you look at that Finance Act of 2020, critics will say that, well, you got to view taxes differently as well, in that they make sure that the government is actually getting something out of it, while also policing this specific industry as they tax it in accordance. Shah, are we treating SAS as an emerging industry within the economy? Is that why we feel like the taxes are a bit punitive and counterintuitive to what we should be achieving?
Yeah, so I think the issue is that the government is too short-term focused in terms of raising the VAT and the import duties for our sector. And one of the reasons why our sector is cutting edge, leading not only in Africa but in the global world in terms of advancing the penetration of the solar technologies in the rural households, is because there were such incentives by, before the 2020 Act, we had the exemptions for VAT and the import duties. And that's why we made the advancement that we did. And we had a certain momentum. But now with these taxes coming in as a big disruption, it is really going to slow down the uptake. But the VAT import duty is only one part of the different taxes that the government can generate, right? Our industry has generated tens of thousands of jobs out there, especially in the rural areas where we're employing the youth to be agents, we're upskilling them to be technicians, and then we are paying the payroll and related taxes relating to that. So now with the slowdown due to the import duties, there's a risk to further job creation, and the government will be, in the long term, also losing out on other taxation revenues. A lot of our companies are startups. We were hardly 5 years old, and we were on the verge of making profits. And when we make profits, of course, we have to pay corporation tax as well. But even if now that profitability has been delayed, then the government is losing out on key payroll and corporate tax revenue. So if you look at the big picture, had the government continued with the exemptions, they would have created much larger taxation revenues in the medium to long term, which are now at risk.
Mr. Tunoi,
maybe if I
let me just ask you these questions and you add on it, Mr. Tunoi. So just you hear what Shah is saying, that, well, if you look at majority of the companies within this industry, so most of them are startups. So you would like to think that the government would actually sort of alleviate some taxation from you so you can actually grow yourselves. Is the government driving a different agenda?
I think it's an issue of one part of government doesn't seem to be aligned with the other part of government. And this is what I wanted to add in.
Yes.
Fiscal policy in any country is supposed to drive both generation of government revenue, but allowing government to provide or invest in the things that they want to grow the economy. It is why, for example, agricultural inputs have been exempted, because we need it to grow our agricultural base, which is what we produce. It's the same with things like incentivizing, and why this government decided they wanted to expand and increase our generation by, was it 44,000 megawatts in 40 months in 2013, because they realized that we need this energy to grow our economy. We need it for production, we need it for other things. So, and that's really why when you go to rural communities that don't have power today, and you look at what it means in their ability to undertake economic activity. If you're in Turkana, and over 90% of people in Turkana and households in Turkana, or 87% in West Pokot, don't have access to electricity. And the government is saying, we want to increase, we are investing in last mile, because you need electricity to be able to do all these other economic activities.
Yes.
So for us, we see that adding the cost when the government is at the same time saying, we want to subsidize, we want to lower your cost to connect under last mile, but you who are off-grid, we are not only not investing in you, we are going to raise your costs. So this is where we are like, there's that disconnect. Really, it is the government's own priorities to spur economic development, energy access, and making sure it's affordable to you. That conversation we're having now, largely about the cost of energy. Anything that adds to that cost is counter to the government's own agenda.
Yes. Sean, let me bring you in 2 minutes, if you may, because we're running out of the time that we're allocated this morning. Do you therefore feel that, well, the government would feel like your industry, your specific industry, which we do know is populated by private players, is acting as a competition to government investment? Shah?
Yes, so as Patrick said, it's about one department not talking to the other, and we lobbied through KEREA, the Kenya Renewable Energy Industry, to all parliamentary committees last year. The Energy Committee is very supportive because they see the end benefits. Of course, with the Finance Committee, their hands are tied because they need to fund all the deficit of the budget. The excuse that we were given by the Finance Committee was the reason why they introduced these the reversal of the tax exemptions is because it was making local manufacturing uncompetitive. Now, we have to be realistic. Because these are very high-tech products that we are bringing from the Far East at very cost-effective prices, which are of course passing on to the consumers. A country like Kenya does not have that sophisticated technological capability to produce these products. So we have to be realistic. And today, as we speak, there's hardly any local manufacturing happening here. But because of that excuse, it is hurting job creation and other tax revenues that the government can generate. And this is why we're using this report, mediums like yourselves, to really educate the government to look at the big picture.
Pretty much. Tonoe, clear for us the conversation this morning. You've launched the report. It's out there. What is the next phase that we expect for you to continue lobbying to?
So I think the next phase for really for us is to get policymakers and also the general public to have this discussion about what is in the interest of Kenya. The number that we can see is while the government stands to lose about or forgo maybe about $19 million US per year from not collecting these taxes, but the net gain to the country and the economy is close to $50 million US a year. So it's that, let the numbers speak. And what is the right decision? Are you going to, for the short-term gain, to say, I need this, now everybody has to pay these taxes, and then we forget to say, okay, I know I'm hurting somewhere else, and the pain I cause elsewhere is higher, but you know what, this immediate gain, this immediate satisfaction is what I want to prioritize. And I think it's really that policy discussion. The numbers to us absolutely speak for themselves. We hope that that the numbers will influence the outcome at the end.
Pretty much. Patrick Tonoe, Head of Policy and Regional Strategy at Gagla, and Snehar Shah, General Manager at Zuri East Africa. Gentlemen, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to speak to Metropol Television about that important SAS industry report. We take a short break. Once we come back, your economic review.